everybody, and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. Yakabiel has been playing for Slovenia against Sweden of Gabriel Goodmanson. So we're going to talk a bit about that. There's also been a bit of a conversation regarding Yakabiel when he was talking in the press. You always get this when players go away to international duty. They seem to do better press conferences than they do when they're around the Leeds United journalists. This has always been the case, and this case with all clubs across the UK, and Yakabiel has talked to them as well, so we've got a few quotes to get into. But the main episode is all going to be around Yakabiel and sort of where he's at Leeds United right now. Obviously signed in the summer for reports of around £18 million. Some saying 15, I think a lot saying £18 million. You thought coming as the starting centre-back, and I've talked about this on the channel before, that Pascal Struijk, I believe, was expected to move on this summer, but since he hasn't moved on, we've now got Yakabiel still at the football club and Pascal Struijk still at the football club. So there is now that fight to start. And there's also been a bit of criticism aimed at Yakabiel. Obviously had that performance against Sheffield Wednesday for us, which wasn't fantastic, but he wasn't the worst player on the pitch by any means. But he was playing last night again for Slovenia, and there's been a few sort of rumblings about his potential passing ability and stuff like that, which we're going to talk about as well. So we're basically going to be discussing, in essence, Yakabiel. And sort of where he will fit into this Leeds United team, and why Leeds United have actually signed Yakabiel as well. But let's start with the news. Before we do that, of course, if you could help the channel by dropping like, subscribe, all that good stuff does help the channel, as views naturally are down with it being an international break. So anyone who is consuming this content, I do naturally really appreciate it. It isn't the busiest time. We are in an international break. But I do think there's still good topics to talk about, hence that's what we're going to be doing. But yeah, Yakabiel was talking to an outlet called Den Vienuk. It's some Slovenian outlet, and he said 2 games on the bench is not something terrible. Bijol told Slovenian outlet blah blah blah. I haven't had a real opportunity yet to get the minutes in Leeds yet. Give me a little more time to show what I can do. So he's basically suggesting that, look, he hasn't had the time yet. Obviously, as I said, I think when he was brought into the club, I think there was an understanding probably between him, the coach, the recruitment team, that he would come in and be a starting centre-back for Leeds. We know obviously this summer Leeds have prioritised that sort of physicality in the Leeds United team. And that is what Bijol gets to. I mean, I remember the stats when he all came in. I'm sure you all do as well. When there was people talking about the fact that he was the third best header in Europe. I think Tarkowski was in there. I think Van Dijk was potentially in there. And he was the 3rd best header in Europe in terms of actually completed headers and winning headers. So obviously he was brought in for that as well. As we know, Leeds United, as I said, targeted the physicality in the team. But it's not quite sort of happened for him yet. As I said, I honestly believe that when I look at sort of who Leeds United brought in this summer, with Yakabiel coming in and Bornau, obviously we knew Bornau was going to come in as a backup, hence the price point that we paid for him. But then when we looked at sort of Bijol, I expected, and I think the club expected, like I said, for Pascal Struijk to move on, and Bijol then to be the starting centre-back next to Joe Rodon, of course, who we know, I would imagine, is a sort of fan favourite, and also Daniel Farke favourite. And as I said, because Pascal Struijk stayed in the team, obviously that continuity is still there, but we are going to have a time, I think, when Yakabiel gets into this Leeds United team. I think that is something that's definitely going to have to happen, because he has got a lot of quality to add. And when we talk a bit about yesterday and sort of where he's been at with the international football, I actually think international football has come at a really, really strong time for Yakabiel, because he's not had the minutes and he needs minutes naturally. And of course, him then going out to Slovenia, it's almost like a bit of a little short loan spell for him, where he can go play against a good forward. Yesterday he was playing against Gyökeres, didn't do awfully. Obviously they did concede 2 goals. I think Gyökeres did score. I think Elanga might have scored as well. But yeah, I think we are going to have to find a way to embed him into this lineup so far. Jets have to comment and said, think he needs to start as he will go hand in hand with the new set piece coach. You do miss Struijk's passing from the back though. See, that's a really interesting comment, because I've been doing a bit of research into Struijk's passing out from the back. And I know a lot of people talk about how fantastic his passing out from the back is, and I think we all can be assumed that his passing out from the back is fantastic. However, an interesting stat I was looking this morning, Rodon actually, in terms of pass accuracy, has a greater pass accuracy out from the back than Pascal Struijk. He averaged 92% last year, Joe Rodon, where Struijk was only at 90%. And I think when we look at sort of what Pascal Struijk offers, it's not just his passing out and his pass accuracy. It's obviously his ability to drive through the midfield with the ball and almost take up that sort of number 6 role as he sort of progresses the ball through the midfield. So I don't think it's all about just passing accuracy, because when we talk about Yakabiel in comparison to Pascal Struijk, yesterday, he had a bad game in terms of on the ball. I think that was sort of something that was mentioned in the Slovenian press, but it's also something that Leeds United fans have picked up who watched the game. His pass accuracy was down at 67%. And I think people can look at that and jump on it and go, well, this is why he's not playing. However, when I looked into the statistics of Bijol, Yakabiel at Udinese last year, obviously in Serie A, he did actually manage 84% pass accuracy. So this is not a player that can't work on the ball. So when you look at sort of Pascal Struijk, and he was at 90% but playing in the Championship, well, 84% actually playing in the Serie A isn't that much difference. However, that is to bear in mind. I think that this year, Pascal Struijk, or this season so far, Pascal Struijk has been up at 92%, or even might be 94%. So there has been an increase in Pascal Struijk. If that will continue in the Premier League, my honest feeling will be no, with the amount of long balls we're playing now. And that's another thing to bear in mind, that because of the new style that we are playing, with the ball going long, as opposed to it obviously just being dropped into one of the midfielders and playing through the thirds, with us sort of bypassing that press and going over the top, I don't think passing accuracy is as important, because when you're going long, you've got much more time for the striker to get into the position he needs to be in, to sort of get in front of the man. Yes, it'd be nice to ping it to his foot every time, but that isn't going to happen, and I don't think that's as important in my personal opinion. So I think actually Yakabiel maybe is a worse passer than Pascal Struijk and can't bring the ball through the defence like a Pascal Struijk can. But I think on the flip side, are we going to actually need to do that? Are we going to try play through teams? Because when I've watched us try play through the press so far this season, that's not been our best way of getting out from the back. So I think that's something to bear in mind. Jack says, Rodon is really underrated in every aspect of his game. Outside of Leeds fans, Bijol should compliment him well. Yeah, I agree. I think there's this understanding sort of from outside of the Leeds United sphere that Joe Rodon is like, but Pascal Struijk sort of the better centre back of the two potentially. And also like much better on the ball than Rodon. And I've never really bought into that. I think Pascal Struijk looks cleaner on the ball, but actually isn't as we've seen with the sort of statistics over the last sort of 12 months at Leeds United. Actually, Rodon's pass accuracy has been better. So I think what we get from Pascal Struijk more is as I said, is the ability to drive the ball into the midfield, and as I said, almost release it and distribute it when he's in that sort of number 6 position, as opposed to Rodon, who doesn't really drive as much forward. Although Rodon can drive through himself and does it at times, I just think that Pascal Struijk's probably potentially slightly better at that. Let's get into another comment. Another reason why selling Struijk wouldn't have been a bad thing. No, this is what I mean, and we've talked about this loads on the channel, so I don't want to go over sort of conversation that we've already had as such, but one of the reasons for me why Pascal Struijk, it was okay that we moved him on, wasn't because Pascal Struijk's a particularly bad player. It's just when you've got a certain budget, which we know Leeds United operated in, I think you've obviously got to spread them funds in the best way humanly possible that you can. And was having either Bijol or Pascal Struijk on the bench potentially over £20 million investments, or players that you could either not buy for £20 million near on with Bijol, or something that you could sell for over £20 million in Struijk? Was that best done as a centre-back on the bench, or was that best used on an attacker that we could actually use to put into our starting 11? That has been my reasons why I think Pascal Struijk should have been moved on, and also the reasons why I think the club actually probably did look to move him on. And obviously we knew that Villarreal interest was there as well. Because I think, as I said, eventually, with Yakabiel, he has come in to start for Leeds United, and I don't think this... I know obviously Pascal has sort of started the first 3 games in the Premier League, obviously missing out in the Cup because of rotation to Bijol, but I don't think that this is something we can continue. I think we're playing a sort of like game right now of sort of still acclimatised to the Premier League, still picking a lot of players in the Premier League. Like, I do think our starting level, when it comes to it, will have players like Okafor on the left-hand side over potentially a Nonto, but I think then you move Nonto to the right-hand side potentially, which is what some people said, which is something that I'd do. So I do think, to be fair, that there is going to be an understanding that Leeds United will have to sort of move Bijol into the starting 11 right now. And as I said, when you talk about Bijol, he's already saying in press conferences, like he said today, give me a little more time to show what I can do. And I think that is the precipice. Now, if that gets to the next international break, it will be interesting to see what quotes he comes out with. as I said, in the next press conference when he goes away with Slovenia again, because I don't think he'll be as calm about his playing time. And I do think, as I said, the whole reason for Yakabiel coming into the club is obviously to start games. We haven't spent £18 million for someone to sit on the bench. But again, we have seen this with Daniel Farke. We've seen positions where he favours certain people in roles who we don't deem, we would deem obviously that we should put, I think we all probably fundamentally agree that Struijk should come out probably and Bijol should come in, potentially after that Arsenal game where, although again Struijk was okay on the ball, it was off the ball his work. He was a sort of a cause of a number of issues for Leeds United, because I think there's never been any sort of disagreement regarding Struijk on the ball. He is good on the ball for a defender. He just has too many mistakes in him. Like, he loses man. He misses the header obviously for the first goal against Arsenal. I think he should do better with the Gyökeres goal when he's cutting inside as well. So I do think when you've bought a defender that's done so well in Serie A last year, was one of the top performers in that league, how we can't get in over Struijk is something that we're probably going to have to look at. Getting him in the team. And I do think, as I said, when we look at sort of, I'll get my team up right now of what I would be playing in a sort of perfect world. Bijol would now be in the team. I think we're going to have to get to the point where he is. But again, I think the other side is that actually Pascal Struijk has been pretty decent this season. With what you can see from his underlying data, it's only really been that Arsenal game, which was poor. And to be fair, when Bijol had the chance against Sheffield Wednesday, although a very different game to the game to the Premier League games in terms of there was basically no defending to do at all, he didn't look that comfortable on the ball. But as I said, my whole thing has always been around that Sheffield Wednesday game, that it was such a completely different game to any other game we're going to play for the rest of the season, especially in the Premier League. We might get another game like that in the Cup if we play a really low league team in the Cup, in the FA Cup, which could happen. But in the Premier League, we're not going to get a team where we're so dominant in possession and they have no interest in attacking like Sheffield Wednesday did. Obviously, that's not a knock on Sheffield Wednesday. I know why they were doing it, but I don't think we're going to get that sort of a game plan and that sort of a style to go up against. And obviously, we know styles make fights even in football as well. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with Bijol. In terms of other players as well in international break, I think it was interesting to see obviously last night Gudmundsson play for Sweden, because he obviously played in the sort of left centre back role for Sweden, over playing in the sort of left back role, which is obviously for Leeds United. And I think there has been talk obviously in the fan base, and we've mentioned it on this channel, about Leeds United's ability to play within a back five. But I think it's interesting to see that sort of Jon Dahl Tomasson trusts Goodmanson to play in that sort of left centre back role, and again sort of speaks to his defending, which we've spoken on this channel before about his ability to defend particularly well, and that being one of his sort of stronger points. I think there's been no mention. I think when we had obviously Junior Firpo at left back, there was always that constant narrative around his defending. I don't think we've seen that with Goodmanson. And again, I think the fact that Jon Dahl Tomasson decides to play him at left centre back, and he did a pretty decent job last night. I don't think he was responsible for either of the Slovenian goals. Obviously, the first one was a complete mistake by Robin Olsen in the goal. So yeah, I do think that that's potentially an option for us. I think the only thing obviously is if we're going to play Goodmanson in a back three at some point, I think you'd obviously be putting him at that left wing back role, which obviously for the Sweden team last night was taken up by Svensson, who obviously is of Borussia Dortmund. But I think that again points to his ability as a defender really. But yeah, let's get some of your guys' comments. Is there any comments? And I'll have to look in a second. No, it looks like it's quite calm in the comments. There's a comment there. Believe he's played there for Lille at times as well. If we go with a back five, he'll fit perfectly at the wing back, though, in my opinion. No, I completely agree. I think, as I said, if Gudmundsson is going to play, if we are going to go to a back five at times, which I do think Daniel Farke will do potentially at times, I do think he'll obviously operate in that left wing back role as opposed to playing in a left centre back role. Because we've got, as we've talked about with the centre backs, one thing they are blessed at for sure is the ability to play with three centre backs in our team. I think that's something that's going to be massive for us this season. Really, really important. But also, I think what is true about this international break as well, which I think people haven't potentially mentioned, is that I know I mentioned at the start that it's really important for us, but it's not really just been important for Bijol. Like, it's going to be important for a lot of players, because even look at the players that are not going on international break. Like Okafor is not in the Switzerland squad. obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin is not in the England squad. I think they're going to be massive because they're two players that have come into the team, still coming quite late into the team when the season has started. Someone that Daniel Farke is going to have to trust and someone that Daniel Farke is going to have to play. And it's going to be nice for them to have a sort of 2-week booster training camp when there's limited numbers in the squad, when some have gone away, and they can really have a good go. And Daniel Farke can have a good look at how the tactical going to be, tactics that they're going to sort of implement, and the styles that them two are going to have to endure in the Daniel Farke team. And also they get the fitness levels up to a certain level. So hopefully when we get back playing against Fulham, we can see sort of Okafor and Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the starting 11, and we can sort of build towards that, obviously that 11 that we are gonna sort of hopefully see as our best sort of 11 and to start the sort of season with, or to move on with the season with anyway. So I do think, as I said, overriding the whole international break, yes, it's boring, and yes, we might even have to watch some League One football, or even England, if you can put yourself through it today against their game against Andorra. But I think actually for Leeds United as a whole and where we're at, and the fact that there's obviously so much negativity come the end of the transfer window, I think it's a nice refresh to get some players back from the injuries in terms of Tanakas and Ampadu's, and also, as I said, to implement the likes of DCLs and Okafor's into that 11, ready to go again for match day 4, obviously against Fulham. And also, as I said, as we talked about, get Bijol back into the lineup as well, get him some minutes under his belt, playing against a really strong Sweden attack, which it is, obviously, with the likes of Gyökeres, Elanga. I don't think Isak was playing, but he wasn't playing. I know that for true, but I do think it's going to be fantastic. But Jack says, but a 4 has worked defensively so far for Arsenal, and it gives more of attacking threat than which we will need. Yeah, exactly. As I said, I've pushed back on this. I know people like the 5 idea. I think I've seen a lot of 5-3-2s. My worry with 5-3-2 is always that you're overloaded on the sort of on the wing areas of the pitch, because naturally they're going to have 2 wide players and you're going to have 1 wide player. You're going to have 1 wing back. They're going to have a full back and a winger. So I think you're always overloaded. So I don't like the 5-3-2 for that reason. I think also with the 5-3-2, you've got to bring your midfield players over, and I just think it's too a hard job for your midfield 3. So I don't really like that. And then obviously playing the sort of the 3-4-3, which we've seen from Wolves and Palace and Manchester United are trying to do it as well. Again, I just think it's too much work for your midfield 2, especially when we've got 3 sort of players that could play in the midfield 2 in Tanaka, Stack, and obviously Ampadu, who are really solid. I think it seems bizarre to go away from a formation that sort of can have all them 3 feature in the lineup, really. So yeah, for me, I'd be sticking with a sort of, I think it's whatever iteration of a 4-3 you want. Some people see it as a 4-1-4-1 that we saw under Bielsa. Some people see it as a more flat 4-3-3. Some people see it as a sort of 4-3-3 just with the holding 6, really, and still wingers up. So it depends how you're going to do it, how it's all going to be structured. But I think that is going to be our best 11 for now. Obviously, if we do start seeing too many goals, then that's something to bear in mind. Jack says, I'm undercover at Huddersfield today. Oh, I up. But scouting any Peterborough players for us, potentially. I think they're playing Peterborough today, Huddersfield. So yeah, potentially. Anyway, just a smaller update now. I'll leave it a minute or so more, and then see if there's any more questions. And if not, we'll wrap the show up there. I think tomorrow we'll probably look more at sort of the transfer windows in the summer and ranking our new signs. Might do something like that, unless some big news pops. But other than that, I think we will leave it there for today. So yeah, thanks all. It looks like there's no more comments. So thanks all for watching. As always, a bit of a shorter one. I think these are quite nice short updates because it gives us a chance to talk not just about transfers like we did all over the summer, but it's nice now to move on and talk about the actual players that we've got at the football club, how Yakabiel is going to feature, how Gudmundsson is going to feature, if we could play a back 5. Hopefully Okafor and sort of and DCL can pick up fitness and get into that 11. But I think it's been quite a nice chat today, something slightly different. But yeah, thanks all for watching as always. And I will see you all tomorrow for some more Leeds United chat. See you all later, everybody. Bye for now. Bye for now.